This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and a very warm welcome to the Daily English Premier League podcast here at GSPN. This is our Friday review coming to you before the big games this weekend. I'm joined today by the one and only Mr. Nick. How are we, sir?
Good to be joining you. The first trophy decided this weekend. It's be a big weekend for some teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say first trophy decided, but I think, we could probably, it's the first official trophy that's going to be lifted other than the Premier League that's already done and dusted.
The first trophy lifted, I should say.
Fair play. I like your clarity. So we're going to cover loads for you in today's episode. We're going to be looking at the first section on the biggest game of the weekend. As we've already alluded to, the Carabao Cup is going to be lifted. It's going to be on Sunday evening. It's a 4:30 kickoff at Wembley, and it has the potential, in my opinion, to be a really good game. If both teams bring some of the form we've seen over this season, as a neutral, I'm quite excited to see how this one plays out. You have to look at the fixture and think for Liverpool, myself, I would back them as favourites. But as we know in cup football, any way it can go. There are a few differences in the teams. You've come up with a few assumptions of what you think that could look like on the night. So what have you come up with, Nick? What do you think the both teams are going to bring?
Well, we saw Trent had to be subbed off midweek, same with Konate, so there's sort of doubts over if both of them will be out. Slot blamed fatigue over injury for Konate, which seemed a bit weird based on how Konate went out. But assuming at least Trent is out, then I think it'll be Quansah right back. I'm going to believe Slot and say Konate's still in, so Konate, Van Dijk, Robertson, then Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Salah, Diaz, and I assume Gakpo will come back in because their front line's not been great recently, has it? So I think they sort of need him to help Salah a bit so that Salah can play those incredible assists, especially sort of the outside of the foot assists. We've seen a lot from Salah. It's been mostly to Gakpo, so I think that'll be sort of Liverpool's lineup with Kelleher in goal. I think he'll let him sort of play the Carabao final. And then from a Newcastle perspective, obviously we saw Gordon get the really stupid suspension. And then it seemed to just be a domino effect after that. Hall out for the season. Botman likely out for the season. So I think it'll be Dubravka in goal. It might be Pope. I think that's a flip of the coin. Then sort of Trippier, Sharper and Livramento, Tonali, Bruno. And then I'm saying Joe Linton will be in midfield, but it could be Willock midfield, Joe Linton left wing, and then Murphy, Isak, and then I've got Barnes at left wing. So,
there you go. I mean, Nick's official, unofficial team sheet is out there for everyone to see. It'd be really interesting to see if you're right. The suspensions and injuries of both teams could be a big factor. I do want to go and address the fact that Liverpool are coming into this game, and from a Newcastle point of view, it's possibly either the best or worst time to play them. Coming off the defeat to PSG, which was unexpected, how do you think that Liverpool are going to react to that?
Well, first off, they'll be knackered, won't they? 120 minutes of how intense that game was. It sounds so basic to say, but they're going to be so tired coming to this game, which could really suit Newcastle. We know they're incredibly physical, and if it's that midfield three that we sort of know from Newcastle now, they could bully that Liverpool midfield, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how Slots tries to pick them back up. I think that's what you're sort of alluding to. Like, it's their first big loss, it feels like, because obviously they've only lost once in the league, and that was September, I think it was, to Nottingham Forest. So it's the first big loss in a while. So yeah, it'll be so interesting to see how Slot picks them back up. But like you say, it's all. I said to Marcus on Tuesday, this is a final thing Liverpool have to play for. So almost exactly what you said. It is the best and worst time to play them, because they can just go all out for this, because there's nothing really to play for in the league.
Yeah, definitely. And for anyone like in the US, I mean, you might disagree with me, but I would say that everybody in the UK sees the Carabao Cup as as the Mickey Mouse Cup of domestic competition. The FA Cup is like, if you got the FA Cup and League, that would be the official double. No one would really call the Carabao Cup and the League a double. I don't think.
No, I don't think I've ever heard someone call that the double. So
Yeah, so
it's almost like you don't care about this tournament until you're in the final, and suddenly, this tournament means so much.
yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, like for Newcastle, it will be because they've gone so long without silverware. Any win is going to be a huge part of their club's history, and it sends them onto the right trajectory. They've also worked their way domestically up the league, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, very shortly when we dive into the fixtures this weekend. I just think it's got the potential of like a once in a lifetime opportunity for Newcastle fans that could be the start of this revolution that we're seeing. However, for Liverpool, I don't know. I think psychologically it's such a big thing that happened against PSG. Going through with the new Champions League format as top, like the best in Europe, and then coming short so early in the competition, which you would argue that, they would have been one of the favourites to go to the final, is going to be very difficult. So I think Slot's got a big job on his hands. And I think Newcastle are going into this with a lot less pressure. If they lose, there's no big change to their club's history. If they win, it's a huge, huge thing for them. Whereas for Liverpool, it would be two huge losses in the space of a week.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be Newcastle's first trophy since 1955. Like, going another year ultimately won't matter too much. Like, obviously they want to break that streak, but if you lose to Liverpool like this season, almost so what? Like, they're incredible this year. So it'll be interesting to see if Liverpool can get themselves up for it, which sounds mental. It's the cup final at Wembley, but like you say, that's such a demoralising loss midweek. It's going to be fascinating. I feel like Liverpool will still win it. It'll be the first English trophy for either manager as well, which is great motivation for Slot, even though, like we were saying, the league is done. So he's got one trophy in the post. So yeah, I don't know what sort of score I'd predict, but I'd edge Liverpool mostly because of Salah.
Yeah, I'm going for a score draw in normal time. Yeah, so finding out whether Liverpool are up for it and they meet my expectations of a score draw, or whether you as a human being can be up for it every single day. And that's why we've chosen Bioniq as our very own sponsor here at GSPN.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered.
That's it. Get it here first. We almost gave it to you twice. That's Bioniq for you guys, for anyone watching. Make sure you go and check those guys out and make sure that your supplements are up to scratch. Now, talking about up to scratch, I'm going to bring you up to the latest games on Saturday's Premier League fixture list. We've got 5 games going out on Saturday. Everton, West Ham, Ipswich playing Forest, Man City against Brighton, Southampton, Wolves, Bournemouth, Brentford. And we want to zone in originally on the Ipswich Forest game and how that ties into the Southampton Wolves game. Particularly looking at how those fixtures could affect the relegation battle. We've got Ipswich playing Forest, where you would think that that would be a tough game for Ipswich to win. And then you've got Southampton against Wolves. Now, if Wolves were to win and Southampton were to lose, the deficit, I think you said, was jumping up to 9 points.
Yeah.
So, what do you think from those games could be the outcome for this season, the relegation battle?
You have to expect Wolves will beat Southampton, and then as much as Forest may struggle breaking down a team who will likely sit back more than they're used to, I'd expect Forest to still get a win there, and then it's up to 9 points, and even with 9 games left after this weekend, it feels like a tall task for Ipswich, who've never really found their feet, it feels like. So I think relegation will be done just like the title's already done, and then we're left with who's going to get the Champions League spots and who's going to get the European places for this season. And like I said, we'll have 9 games left.
Yeah, absolutely. There's loads of football still to play, but I do agree with you. Looking at the relegation battle, Ipswich would need a 3-game swing. So they'd need Wolves to lose 3 games and them to win 3 games. And up to this point in the season, Ipswich have only won 3 games. So for them to do it in the next 9 games, it's a very, very tall order. That being said, it does leave the other side, who are also on 17 points, to maintain that chase, which we'll talk about in a minute. That's a Sunday fixture, is Leicester, who play Man United. So anything is up for grabs there. We're agreeing that Southampton are done and dusted.
The only story for Southampton is, can they get those 3 points?
Yeah, absolutely. Can they not get the worst record of all time?
Yeah.
Which, absolutely is a primal possibility. Ipswich Forest, we're going to say that Forest are probably going to go away with the win, just based on both teams' stature in the table, but also form.
Yeah, go 1 point behind Arsenal as well. That could be quite interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, and then Southampton Wolves, as you've said, Southampton are the whipping boys of the season, but also due a win and a rub of luck. So it could come that day. But I really think any time that Wolves slip up now, Leicester and Ipswich have to get points. They can't rely on that happening and them not getting results. They need to grind out results when that happens.
Yeah, we're in that part of the season as well where suddenly these teams towards the bottom are getting points all the time, because they suddenly realise, like, the time's running out. Like, we got to start picking up points, and there's a bit more desire almost, and maybe we'll see that again. But I think it's all done and dusted anyway, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. So the other game to talk about really is Man City Brighton. Now, I don't want to steal your thunder, but tell us about what happened in the reverse fixture.
Well, it was sort of the game where City were exposed. They'd already lost to Spurs, but it maybe felt like a bit of a fluke. Spurs usually get decent results against City, but then they went to the Amex and Baleba came on at half time and they just played through City constantly. And it felt like the game where it went, oh, City aren't what they used to be anymore without Rodri. And I think we saw them lose last week to Forest. If they don't win again, then I think any hopes for, like, sort of pushing their way up the table, as much as it won't really matter, are almost gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the game is on a pendulum. I do think that's where it's going to be most interesting in the Premier League now. Talking about these places, because at the minute there is 1 point between both teams. So a Brighton win would push City out of European football.
Yeah, Brighton probably go above City with a win.
Yeah, which is
That's
crazy
mental.
and not unthinkable with the way that both teams have been playing. So it's a huge, huge game, as it is for other teams within that area. And another team that are playing is Bournemouth and Brentford. Just looking at the table, we've got Bournemouth, who are the closest to what we're talking about currently. They're on 44 points. So a win for them would see them join City current points total of 47. And then you've got Brentford, who are just outside of this talking point, but have had a great season, all being given for them. So, yeah, Bournemouth could potentially be up there in European football slots at the end of Saturday.
Yeah, and Bournemouth are on a bit of a weird run. They got one win in their last 5, but they should have won last week against Spurs. And yeah, I wonder if they're a bit fatigued and maybe even have an eye on the FA Cup, which I believe would be the first time they've won it if they could manage to go on and win that. So I wonder if their attention's a little bit diverted. But I think they need at least a draw to sort of keep their hopes up for European football, despite it being so tight. If the results go not in their favour, say Brighton win, then it feels like it gets away from them a little bit. So it's good. I think this will be a really entertaining game. I think it could be the most entertaining Premier League game this weekend. But yeah, it's going to be. I think it's really important for Bournemouth to at least get a draw.
Yeah, definitely. And two teams that we've not mentioned are Everton and West Ham. Just really quickly briefing on their points total. Currently, both on 33 points. Both have had a transformation, but Everton more than West Ham. David Moyes has had a huge impact on them. They're both safe, we'd say, 10 points clear of Wolves. It's a bit of a nothing game, really.
Yeah, it's mostly just a bragging rights game. Like, if Moyes can beat West Ham and sort of go, you should have just stuck with me, they'll go 3 points clear of West Ham, who are on course for their lowest finish in 5 years, I saw. So,
Wow.
as if they're not getting the message enough that they probably should have just admitted that Moyes was good for them. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
I think this could just be Everton beating West Ham and showing them what they're missing out on.
Yeah, and talking about bragging rights, we like to hear at GSPN brag about our platform choice of podcasting platforms, which is, of course, Zencastr.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out as the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description to learn more about Zencastr.
Absolutely. And I'm going to work in reverse order to build up.
Oh, so-
We nearly told you that again as well. We are going to work in reverse order just to build up anticipation. So if you're a United fan, you're going to be happy because we're going to go first with the Leicester United game. Again, it's pretty much a nothing game unless you're a Leicester fan. Who potentially it could be a massive game if results go your way and you manage to pull off a win against United. It will really help towards their mission of attempting to stay in the Premier League, which we do deem as being quite a huge task for them to do. Ruud van Nistelrooy against his ex-managerial club, which is very odd to say. Tell us a little bit more about that.
well, he will have managed all 4 games between these two teams this season, but managed 2 for each side. And whatever happens, he'll have a 50% win ratio because he won both of the United ones.
It's quality, and what do you see as a realistic outcome for that game? Do you think Leicester have got a chance?
Not really. They've not scored at home in their last 6 games. They've lost an aggregate of 15-0, lost 12 of their last 13. Like, Leicester fans would probably just be quite happy to see a goal at home. I feel quite bad for their season ticket holders. They changed formation last week to a 3-4-2-1, so it'll be the same formations up against each other. But I think United will have to sort of take this game into their hands. Like they'll be expected to control this game, which will be interesting to watch. Obviously, we're recording before they play Real Sociedad, so we don't know how that's gone yet. But United need to build on the positives from the Arsenal game as much as I don't think Arsenal played particularly good from an Arsenal perspective. That it's at least something to build on and a bit of positivity around how the team played. So I think it's a big chance for United to build on that at least going forward.
Yeah, and as you said before the Sociedad game, United are 5 games unbeaten, which is something to keep hold of, I would say. And also, ironically, compared to what you have just said, the only team to have scored against Leicester in the last 5 games is, concede against Leicester in the last 5 games is Man United. So it's wide open for me. Anything could happen. I just think, from a United fan, all I want to see from Ruben Amorim now is experiment with your team. Get to know all of your team and make some clear-cut, black and white decisions ready for the summer transfer window. And without further ado, let's move on to London. We have Fulham against Tottenham Hotspurs. Fulham have actually something to play for if they are wanting to try and get amongst the cat and the pigeons, if that's the right phrase. We have got Fulham sat on 42 points in 10th place, which I honestly think is mad that at this point in the season we're talking about 10th place potentially getting into European spots.
I mean, they'd be deserving as well. I think Marco Silva's sort of gone under the radar a lot in the past, probably 2 years. I thought he should be linked to some bigger jobs last summer when the likes of Bayern were available and Chelsea. And this is going to be his 200th Premier League game. He's got the highest Premier League win percentage of any Fulham manager, even higher than Hodgson, who obviously took them to the Europa League final in 2010. Like this, he could sort of form his own legacy at Fulham if he wants to, and get into European football for the first time in 15 years for Fulham. So a win could be massive here. I don't really know what to expect from Spurs. It feels like you almost get different performances every single game. Obviously, they managed to salvage a draw last week despite looking pretty rubbish. So Fulham at home, give them the slight edge, but European football. But I think the FA Cup will be more on their ice than European football.
Yeah, very interesting. And as you said, like for Spurs, I think it's so difficult to say what Spurs side you're going to see. And that even went down to the game, like you said last weekend. It was a game of literally two halves, and it saw a very interesting side. I think Ange has gone through being wanted out by the fans to being the right choice again. It's just constantly a pendulum that's floating backwards and forwards at Tottenham Hotspur. So we will see if Fulham manage to maintain pressure on the teams above them in the push to that European spot. But talking about the European spots, we've got one with two teams who are sat currently in second and fourth place. Arsenal host Chelsea in what was a massive fixture back in the day. Now, unfortunately for both these teams, they aren't looking at championship um, grandeur of games. It's not a 6 point swing in that sense, but it is quite a big game in the sense that Chelsea could reduce the deficit to 3 points to second place. And Arsenal's season could go from bad to worse in many ways.
Yeah, and with how emotional and bipolar our fan base is, it will get very panicky if we lose on Sunday, looking down, and if those three teams below us have all won, you have Forest behind by 1 point, Chelsea behind just 3 points behind, City 5 points behind, and almost be begging for this international break for once. Saka might be back after it, and then we might finally sort of find our feet again and get going. Martinelli should be back, like potentially starting for this game, which I'd quite like to see him up front. I think he'd be better up front than Trossard. Definitely better up front than Marino. As like fine as a job as I think he's done, but it'd be nice to see three forwards for once.
Would you feel that anything other than an Arsenal win for you would be worrying, or would you be take a draw?
Depending on the manner of the draw, I wouldn't really mind a draw. It, I think Arsenal have sort of controlled this fixture, both home and away, for quite a while now. So I think we still go in as favourites. I think Chelsea are struggling to score, similar to us at the moment. So it's almost two teams without a striker, because as much as they have Nkunku, he doesn't seem to want to play him as a striker necessarily. So I think we're still favourites for this game. I think it could just be a simple 1-0, maybe a 1-1, and Palmer suddenly scores again, even though he's been in bad form for 3 months, 4 months, it feels like. But
Yeah.
I don't think this will be particularly entertaining, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I can see it being quite a dull affair. And yeah, although it means nothing, because you would still assume, even if Arsenal were to lose this, they would make Champions League football. So you can't imagine that the demise would be so big. But as you've already said, there's still a hell of a lot of football to play. There's 9 games. 27 points. That's quick maths for me. 27 points still up for grabs, which is a significant amount of football still to play between now and the end of the season. And I think second to ninth in this table will change a hell of a lot between now and then, weekly.
Yeah. I think the one thing that benefits Arsenal probably is we won't be facing a low block finally in the Premier League. So, like, Chelsea will try and play, and it might just be to their detriment. I think, like I already said, our defence will probably get us through this game, and then it'll just be, please take a chance, create a chance. That'll be quite nice, because we seem to struggle to do that even last week against Man United.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that breaking through the lines, you were good, but then once it didn't work, there were there was almost a void of idea of how to then make it. And I think a lot of your success, I might be wrong because I've not seen everything as closely as you will have, but a lot of your success came from when you were being so successful with set pieces, and teams just didn't know how to cope. It almost ignited the team because they had this hidden gem that was defeating teams, and that created a momentum within the team, and that seemed to have subsided. And obviously, your injuries have gone against you, and the fact that Liverpool have been formidable, all those things adding up to correlate to unfortunately the position that you're in right now.
Yeah, it feels like so much has gone against Arsenal this season. I know it's a bit like, woe is me, we're second in the league. We're playing Real Madrid for the second time ever in the Champions League. Like, for every other team, like, it's not that bad, but it's the expectations and the context around how this season has gone, that the red cards early on sort of already put us on a back foot, and then Salah's putting in one of the greatest seasons we'll ever see. And then all the injuries coming at the same time. It's like, even to the start of the season, it was Timber and White out at the same time, three left backs out at the same time. Like, it's not just one player in their position going and then their backup comes in. We seem to always be losing the start and the backup at the same time. So, and like you say, the corners have dried up. Probably coincides with Saka's injury and the quality of delivery he was putting in. It's not like Rice has necessarily been putting in bad deliveries. I think teams have wised up a little bit to just, like, go down, and the referee will probably give a foul. So, and not getting that goal from a set piece, which changes the game state. The teams have to come out a bit more, which makes it easier for us to play against them, especially against those really deep low blocks. Those drying up have definitely played a big part in the last few months, I think.
Yeah, without doubt. So I think we've kind of surmised the weekend quite thoroughly there. I mean, there's a lot of will questions in my mind. Will Newcastle lift a trophy for the first time in 70 years? Will City remain in the Champions League football? Will Leicester and Ipswich's hope of Premier League football next season continue? There are so many questions, and we will review all of these on Monday morning, where you can get your podcast anywhere you find it. So make sure to follow us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast station, Apple, Spotify, and the rest. But for now, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Nick.
I was happy to join you.
Yeah, and you, pal. It's been a pleasure. And we will see you on the other side. It has been the Daily English GSPN Daily Podcast.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.